Tularin followed Admiral Chen through the labyrinthine corridors of the Tenacity, noticing how human crew members straightened their postures and offered strange symbolic hand gestures as their commander passed. These gestures, called salutes, were remnants of Earth's martial history that the consortium had repeatedly asked them to abandon, yet persisted. Like so many other human anachronisms, the walls of the vessel featured images of ancient Earth predators, eagles, wolves, lions, alongside historical human military leaders whose exploits would have resulted in genetic correction among any civilized species. Chen led the ambassador to the war room, where holographic displays showed the expanding Vex incursion zones across Consortium Space 17 worlds, already lost countless billions of sentient beings, eradicated without negotiation or mercy. Tularin's appendages trembled with both grief and diplomatic caution when addressing the human Admiral. Humans' understanding of galactic politics remained rudimentary at best, yet here they all were dependent on these primitives for survival. Chen activated a secure terminal revealing classified Earth defense protocols that had supposedly been dismantled centuries ago. After joining the consortium protocol Ragnarok, displayed across the screen, a complete military mobilization plan for the entire human sphere, the ambassador stared in disbelief. Earth had maintained this capability despite signing 17 different disarmament treaties. Chen offered no apology, meeting the alien's compound eyes with that unsettling human directness. "We never stopped being who we are, we just stopped showing you," she explained. "The consortium wouldn't survive one standard cycle against the Vex. Using your tactics, your ships, your philosophy, the Vex don't recognize diplomacy, don't respect technological superiority, and don't engage in the careful dance of civilized warfare you've cultivated over millennia. They're apex predators, and there's only one way to fight predators." Tularin expected to feel outrage at this blatant treaty violation. Instead, the ambassador felt something new: fear, not of humans, but for the first time in a distinguished diplomatic career, fear that the carefully constructed peace of the consortium might be nothing but an illusion maintained through genetic engineering, technological stagnation, and deliberate blindness to the dangers lurking beyond known space. The consortium had forgotten how to fight, spending millennia perfecting how not to fight. Humans had done the opposite. Admiral Chen pulled up footage from the recent Kest encounter, showing human Marines boarding the alien vessel, fighting hand-to-hand in corridors, their primitive projectile weapons proving devastatingly effective. In close quarters, humans died in the assault, their faces showing not fear, but determination, even exhilaration. 12 Marines against 300 Kest warriors. The outcome should have been mathematically certain, yet the humans prevailed. Chen terminated the video feed, turning to face the ambassador. "Fully, we've watched your scientists attempting to modify our genetic structure to remove our capacity for aggression for 3 centuries. We've allowed it while knowing it was failing. Your genetic engineers don't understand what they're trying to remove. It's not just aggression, it's our drive, our ambition, our ability to face impossible odds and refuse to submit. Whatever makes humans fight isn't located in a single gene sequence. It's woven through everything. We are." The Admiral's voice carried no apology, only certainty. "We've maintained our military capabilities in secret, because deep down we always knew this day would come when the galaxy would need what you spent millennia trying to breed out of yourselves." Tularin's translator implant struggled to interpret Chen's expression as the human's mouth curved upward in what the database labeled both a smile and a predatory display, a disconcerting combination that perfectly encapsulated humanity. Admiral Chen moved through the holographic displays with methodical precision, stopping occasionally to extract data fragments from Earth's military archives, files that had supposedly been surrendered to consortium oversight centuries ago. Ancient battles from humanity's blood-soaked history appeared and disappeared around Tularin, each more disturbing than the last, humans killing humans in numbers that defied comprehension, using weapons that ranged from primitive bladed instruments to nuclear devices. Chen focused on something the archives labeled urban warfare and asymmetric response. The tactical displays showed humans fighting in ruined cityscapes using improvised explosives, traps, and ambush techniques that violated every principle of honorable combat established in the consortium's civilized warfare protocols. Tularin had never seen such efficient brutality, Even in historical archives, the consortium species had engaged in warfare before achieving enlightenment, but nothing compared to the concentrated savagery humans had perfected over millennia of continuous conflict. What disturbed the ambassador most was the expression on Chen's face, as she studied these ancient techniques, not disgust or regret, but professional appreciation. Chen noticed the ambassador's distress and paused. The simulation humans fight dirty Telarin, because death doesn't care about honor, only survival matters. You're about to learn this lesson the hard way. The Admiral's words carried weight beyond their immediate meaning, implying the consortium's carefully constructed rules of engagement were luxuries they could no longer afford. In the adjoining chamber, Earth military personnel were already being fitted with combat exoskeletons, banned under 17 different consortium treaties, the technology amplifying human strength and speed to levels that would allow them to engage Vex ground forces directly. The bioscanners showed alarming chemical changes in the humans' bloodstreams as they prepared for combat. Increased adrenaline, testosterone, and cortisol levels, along with numerous synthetic combat drugs the consortium had specifically prohibited. Telarin watched in horror as the soldiers' pupils dilated, their respiration increased, and their biometric readings shifted into patterns the ambassador's species had engineered out of their genome 10,000 years ago. These humans were physiologically enjoying the prospect of combat, a concept so alien to the consortium that many species lacked vocabulary to describe it. Admiral Chen continued accessing restricted files, bypassing security protocols that should have required consortium authorization, but apparently had been compromised long ago. Through a series of commands, she activated what human records called the Lazarus Protocol, named after some ancient Earth mythology figure who returned from death. Suddenly, facilities across the human sphere began powering up. Installations the consortium believed had been decommissioned or converted to civilian use, massive manufacturing complexes beneath Earth's oceans on Mars and throughout the asteroid belt began producing warships, weapons, and combat drones at a scale that indicated the infrastructure had been maintained in secret for centuries. Telarin struggled to process the implications. The humans had been preparing for this moment since joining the consortium, never fully committing to the peace they had outwardly embraced. When confronted with this observation, Chen neither confirmed nor denied, merely stating sometimes the best way to avoid war is to be devastatingly prepared for it. The tactical displays shifted to show Vex fleet movements, the black ships advancing with mechanical precision through consortium space, encountering minimal resistance as civilizations that had forgotten how to fight faced extinction. You have two choices, Telarin Chen explained, as if discussing meal options. Rather than the fate of galactic civilization, continue fighting according to your rules and be systematically exterminated, or unleash. Us humans have been evolving as warriors for our entire existence. We've spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing things that are bigger, stronger, and more technologically advanced than ourselves. The consortium council chamber erupted into chaos as species that had evolved beyond shouting now found themselves reverting to primitive behaviors in the face of extinction. The holographic displays showed Earth's transformation from a seemingly compliant member world to a military juggernaut. Orbital imagery revealed massive hangar doors opening across Earth's supposedly protected wilderness areas as fighter squadrons dormant for centuries top to the skies in perfect formation. The Mars colonies shed their civilian facades like snakes shedding skin, the tourist attractions and scientific outposts giving way to hardened military bunkers, training grounds, and weapons factories that had been operating in secret beneath the surface. Chen stood calmly before the council, her uniform now bearing insignia that had been officially retired when Earth joined the consortium, yet somehow had been preserved underground. Like so much of humanity's martial heritage, the arachnid counselor spun an agitated web pattern as they addressed the human representative. Your species, eager to genetic pacification and military disarmament, as conditions for membership, humans have systematically violated every treaty requirement while maintaining the appearance of compliance. This deception rivals the current Vex threat in its implications for galactic security. Chen did not bother with denial, instead activating a secondary display showing the first human counteroffensive already underway without Council authorization. Human vessels engaging Vex ships near the Arcturus sector using tactics that violated 17 different articles of the civilized warfare protocols. The human ships fought with brutal efficiency, targeting propulsion systems, life support, and using nuclear mines in civilian space. The Council watched in horror as the battle unfolded. Human marines in powered armor boarding Vex vessels, fighting corridor by corridor with primitive projectile weapons and bladed instruments, the violence explicit and disturbing in its intimacy. The Elder Counselor, a being whose species had achieved peace 10 millennia before humans discovered fire, rose on trembling limbs. This is barbarism. The Vex may destroy our bodies, but you humans threaten our very civilization, our values, our evolutionary achievement. Chen's response cut through the chamber like a blade. Sometimes civilization needs barbarians, her voice calm, yet carrying unmistakable threat. I've studied your history, Counselor. Your species achieved peace by removing parts of yourselves, engineering out the capacity for violence, along with the drive to explore, to push boundaries, to evolve. You've been slowly dying for 10,000 years, preserving a beautiful corpse. A silence following her words felt physical. The consortium representatives, facing a truth they had collectively avoided acknowledging for millennia, human military vessels now operated throughout consortium space, moving with purpose and coordination that suggested years of preparation and stockpiling resources. The facilities beneath Earth's oceans worked at full capacity, producing specialized weapons designed to target Vex vulnerabilities humanity had identified after capturing and dissecting the first Vex specimens. Chen presented the Council with documentation of these findings, including weaknesses the Vex poses that human scientists had discovered, while consortium researchers were still debating ethical protocols for studying the enemy. The Delphian representative, normally the most moderate voice on the Council, studied the human data with growing unease. You've been preparing for this for centuries, haven't you? Not the Vex specifically, but some existential threat. Chen's expression remained neutral. We maintained radanes, despite your attempts to breed it out of us, because humans understand something your species forgot. The universe isn't safe. It never was. Peace isn't the natural state. Predation is. Admiral Chen laid out humanity's terms with the precision of someone who had rehearsed this moment. Complete military authority, autonomous command structure, unrestricted weapons development, and immunity from consortium oversight for the duration of the conflict. The Council erupted again in protest. The terms amounting to effective human control of consortium military assets. Chen waited for the outrage to subside before delivering her final point. Humanity would save the galaxy with or without permission. The consortium could stand aside and let humans fight unencumbered, or watch as Earth withdrew completely from the alliance, taking its military capabilities with it, leaving the pacified species to face extinction. The choice, while presented as an option, was no choice at all, and every being in the chamber knew it. The Vex advance had reached the inner systems, exterminating all life they encountered, while the consortium debated ethical responses. Humans offered the only effective resistance. This was the moment Chen had prepared for her entire career, the moment when the galaxy would need what humanity had never surrendered. Their warrior nature. Commander Jackson Wayne moved through the captured Vex vessel with practiced silence, his boots specially modified to absorb sound, his exoskeleton powered down to minimal life support functions to avoid detection. The alien architecture pulsed with bioluminescent fluids that ran through transparent conduits like blood through veins. The vessel itself more organic than mechanical. 12 members of his strike team had penetrated the ship using a technique Y had mastered during the Taiwan Strait conflict a century ago, something humans called a halo drop, high altitude low opening, a free fall from orbit using minimal propulsion only at the last moment to avoid detection, while consortium military doctrine relied on sophisticated stealth fields and sensor dampening. Humans simply used gravity and timing. Way's team had launched themselves from a cloaked shuttle, dropping silently through space before landing on the Vex ship's exterior hull, where they cut their way inside using primitive thermal charges. Y counted 4 more Vex dead at his feet, their black crystalline bodies shattered by ballistic weapons technology the Consortium had declared obsolete centuries ago, yet proved devastatingly effective against enemies whose defenses were designed to counter energy weapons and quantum phase disruptors, not simple chunks of accelerated metal. The team collected tissue samples from each kill, sending the data back to Earth laboratories through quantum entanglement communicators that bypassed conventional detection methods. Y reached a junction in the biological corridors, following an instinct honed through decades of combat operations. Rather than relying on the mapping technology, his Consortium advisors had insisted he bring the maps were theoretically perfect, but Y trusted his gut feeling, a human trait the Consortium had tried repeatedly to breed out of their species, considering it primitive and unreliable, yet had proven correct countless times throughout human military history. The central chamber of the Vex vessel revealed its secrets to Y's experienced eyes, not a traditional command center, but a biological processing node where navigator entities merged physically with the ship itself. The human team documented everything using cranial implants that recorded visual data. Directly, Y approached one of the dead navigators, examining its structure with his combat knife, a tool the Consortium representatives had mocked when he included it in his equipment loadout, yet proved invaluable for the close inspection of Vex biology. The navigator's neural structure showed evidence of extensive modification patterns Y recognized from Earth's own experiments with guided evolution during the forbidden eugenics wars centuries ago. These weren't natural beings, but weapons designed for a specific purpose, escaping that purpose through evolution and developing their own agenda. The realization sent chills through Y's augmented nervous system. The team secured the chamber, establishing a defensive perimeter using improvised explosives fashioned from components of their own equipment, another human technique the Consortium considered barbaric, sacrificing resources to create weapons. Y activated his quantum communicator, establishing contact with Admiral Chen aboard the EDF Thermopylae, the Admiral's holographic projection materializing in the captured Vex chamber, her expression shifting from military formality to surprise as Y revealed his findings. The Vex showed unmistakable signs of design, their neural pathways arranged in patterns matching classified Consortium bioengineering techniques, their genetic structure containing markers found only in species that had undergone directed evolution. Chen processed this information with the rapid analytical efficiency that had made her Earth's most decorated military commander. These aren't invaders from beyond the rim, their weapons someone made and lost control of. Y transmitted detailed scans of the Vex biology, focusing on specific neural structures that contained embedded command protocols dormant, but still present in their genome. The strike team had discovered something the Consortium's sophisticated analysis had missed, because humans still understood weapons in ways the pacified species had forgotten. Every weapon has a kill switch, Y explained to Chen, showing the neural pathway that could theoretically shut down the entire Vex collective consciousness. But accessing this pathway would require infiltrating the central Vex command vessel, the nexus of their hive mind, the mission shifting from reconnaissance to something far more strategic. The human team prepared to extract from the captured ship, having accomplished more in 6 hours than Consortium special forces had in months. Y felt the familiar rush of adrenaline as his team moved toward the extraction point. This was what humans were made for, what evolution had honed them into: perfect predators who recognized other predators. The ancient city of Sparta transformed overnight from a historical curiosity into the beating heart of galactic resistance. The ruins where humans once trained their most elite warriors now hosted representatives from 8,000 star systems, learning the art of war from a species they had dismissed as primitive stone training grounds that had been tourist attractions for centuries. Now saw actual combat drills as Consortium military officers struggled to keep pace with human instructors who pushed them beyond their genetically imposed limitations. Admiral Chen watched from the Acropolis as diverse species attempted to master human combat techniques, many failing spectacularly yet returning to try again, driven by the existential threat that had awakened something long dormant in even the most pacified race's survival instinct. The War College operated continuously human military historians, teaching ancient tactics that predated spaceflight, yet remained devastatingly effective against the Vex Thermopylae, Cannae, Stalingrad, Incheon battles that most humans knew only from historical archives, now provided blueprints for galactic defense. Chen had ordered Earth's classified military archives, open sharing knowledge humans had preserved despite centuries of attempted censorship by the consortium engineers from species that have forgotten how to design weapons, now worked alongside human specialists adapting Earth's extensive arsenal for deployment against the Vex, the collaboration producing hybrid technologies that combined consortium scientific advancement with humanity's practical experience in killing things. Chen's private command center beneath the ancient temple of Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare, buzzed with activity holographic displays showing successful human counteroffensives across 17 sectors. Where consortium forces had previously failed, the tactical displays revealed the distinctive patterns of human warfare, unpredictable, asymmetric, and ruthlessly efficient. The Vex advance had not just stalled, but reversed in regions where human commanders had been given authority. Their predictive algorithms, failing against opponents who deliberately introduced chaos into their battle plans, the consortium observers struggled to understand how strategies that appeared disorganized, even suicidal, could achieve such consistent results. One Delphian analyst spent 3 days studying footage of a human assault before realizing the apparent retreat had been deliberate bait, leading Vex forces into a prepared killing ground. The most senior consortium representative, Admiral Trell of the Cephalon Fleet, approached Chen as she reviewed tactical data from the Europa weapons testing facility, his tentacles arranged in a pattern indicating extreme distress. Your species was supposed to be undergoing gradual pacification as part of the membership agreement, yet you've maintained not just military readiness, but military advancement. Your weapons development continued in secret while you presented a compliant facade to our oversight committees. Chen did not look up from her displays, continuing to issue orders to human fleet elements throughout consortium space. When she finally acknowledged the alien admiral, her response was characteristically blunt. Did you really believe we would surrender our nature, the very thing that has kept us alive through our entire evolutionary history, because some treaty told us to? Trell's translator struggled to interpret the human expression known as a smile that appeared briefly on Chen's face, the Cephalon's bioscanners detecting increased adrenaline in the human system as she activated displays showing Project Shiva, a weapons platform humanity had developed in secret beneath Jupiter's moon Europa. The technology, so advanced it violated multiple consortium prohibitions on weaponizing quantum manipulation, yet so elegantly designed it could target Vex neural structures with surgical precision. The consortium admiral recognized the implications immediately. This weapon could have been used against any consortium species at any time, yet humans had withheld it, built it in secret, but never deployed it against their supposed allies. Despite numerous diplomatic conflicts, we never planned to use these weapons, Trell Chen explained. Unless we faced extinction, the difference between humans and the consortium isn't that we're violent and you're peaceful. It's that we understand peace requires the capacity for violence. We maintain the ability to fight, so that ideally we never have to. The data flowing into Chen's command center showed consortium worlds rapidly adopting human military protocols, emergency fabrication facilities, producing weapons based on Earth designs, pacified species requesting genetic modification reversals to restore combat reflexes, the galaxy undergoing a fundamental transformation as the understanding spread that the peace they had maintained for millennia had been built on deliberately forgetting how war worked. Rather than transcending it, Chen activated a secure communication channel to Commander Y's strike team preparing for the most audacious mission in human military history, the infiltration of the Vex command vessel, not with overwhelming force or technological superiority, but with a uniquely human combination of cunning improvisation and controlled aggression that had defined Earth's military history since humans first picked up weapons to hunt. Commander Wei stood before his assembled strike team in a secured briefing chamber beneath Antarctica. 12 humans who represented the pinnacle of Earth's special operations capabilities. Each volunteer had undergone extensive modifications to help them pass as Vex, their skin altered with chameleonic properties, neural interfaces installed to intercept and mimic Vex communications patterns, and genetic modifications that would mask their human biosignatures. The procedures would have violated 27 different consortium bioethics treaties, but humanity had abandoned such restrictions when extinction became the alternative. Wei studied each face, memorizing them, knowing that statistically most would not return. The team represented Earth's diversity: Chinese, Russian, American, Nigerian, Israeli, Japanese, Brazilian, that ancient national divisions, meaningless now as they prepare for what military historians were already calling the most ambitious special operations mission in human history. The holographic display activated, showing the Vex command vessel's projected location based on intelligence gathered from the captured scout ship. The structure, massive beyond comprehension, a biological megastructure, nearly the size of Earth's moon, pulsing with the collective consciousness of billions of Vex entities. Wei outlined the infiltration strategy with methodical precision. The team would allow themselves to be captured by a Vex patrol, their modified biology designed to register as damaged Vex soldiers in need of repair, rather than human infiltrators. Once aboard, they would navigate to the central neural nexus and deploy the shutdown signal. Wei had memorized the probability of success calculations, but refrained from sharing them with his team. The consortium analysts had given them a 5% chance of completing the mission and a 0.8% chance of survival. Humans had faced worse odds throughout their bloody history and prevailed. Naomi Chen, no relation to the Admiral, entered the briefing chamber carrying sealed containers of neural suppressants, the final component of the mission. The drugs would partially deactivate the team's consciousness, allowing the Vex collective to sense them as damaged units rather than foreign entities. The side effects included hallucinations, memory fragmentation, and potentially permanent neural damage. Wei signed the medical waiver without hesitation, his team following suit without question. The doctor's expression remained professional, but her eyes betrayed concern. You understand that these compounds haven't been fully tested. The neural damage could be irreversible. Wei's response came with a dark humor characteristic of special forces throughout human history. Doc, if we succeed but suffer brain damage, we've saved civilization. If we fail, none of it matters anyway. His team laughed, the gallows humor incomprehensible to consortium observers monitoring the briefing, but perfectly natural to humans facing near certain death. The modified Vex vessel captured in the previous mission had been reprogrammed to transport the team close enough to be intercepted by Vex patrols, the interior reconfigured to support human physiology while maintaining external Vex signatures. The boarding procedure began in silence, each team member performing equipment checks with practiced efficiency. Wei noticed his hands steady despite the mission parameters, his heart rate elevated but controlled, the product of genetic modifications and specialized training that allowed humans to function under conditions that would incapacitate most sentient species with fear. As the final team member boarded, Wei received a direct communication from Admiral Chen, breaking protocol, her normally stoic expression showing something rarely seen in the legendary commander: actual emotion. Wei, I need you to understand something, she began, hesitating uncharacteristically. When you reach the command vessel and access their genetic archive, secure everything before deploying the shutdown code. There's something about the Vex we still don't understand, something critical to the future of the consortium. Wei acknowledged without requesting clarification, understanding the implicit order: secure intelligence before completing the primary mission, the flexibility to adapt to changing parameters, another uniquely human trait. The consortium military structure, with its rigid hierarchies and extensive approval protocols, could never have authorized such a last-minute change. Experienced human operators understood that missions evolved in the field and commanders needed latitude to make critical decisions. Without consultation, the strike team settled into storage pods designed to induce temporary stasis, preserving their strength for the coming infiltration. As the vessel's systems activated, Wei allowed himself a final thought before the neural suppressants claimed his consciousness. For all the consortium's technological superiority, for all the evolutionary advancement, they still needed humans to do what humans had always done best: face the darkness, with nothing but courage, improvisation, and the capacity for controlled violence. He wondered, as consciousness faded, if the galaxy would remember this moment when humanity saved a civilization that had spent centuries trying to breed the very qualities that now made salvation possible. Admiral Chen stood before the holographic display in her command center, the massive tactical overview showing 3 frontier systems directly in the path of advancing Vex forces. Her staff worked silently around her, each human officer understanding the weight of her impending decision. Consortium representatives had been politely but firmly excluded from this planning session. What she was considering violated not just consortium protocol, but fundamental ethical principles held by every member species. A schematic displayed Operation Scorched Earth in meticulous detail, the systematic destruction of 3 inhabited solar systems to eliminate 20% of the Vex fleet in a single coordinated strike. The civilian populations of these worlds were being quietly evacuated through channels disguised as routine transport. But Chen knew with mathematical certainty that not everyone would escape. The Vex arrival timeline left just 14 days to remove billions of sentient beings, an impossible task. While Commander Sato approached with the latest evacuation figures, they were falling catastrophically behind schedule. The consortium evacuation protocols, designed for orderly relocations over months or years, not rapid emergency extraction, less than 30% of the civilian population could be saved in the available time under optimal conditions. Chen studied the numbers, her expression unreadable save for a small muscle twitching in her jaw, a tell recognizable only to those who had served with her for decades. She was about to make a decision that would haunt her for whatever remained of her life. The utilitarian calculus, brutal but unavoidable: sacrifice millions now to save trillions later. The kind of decision humans had made throughout their blood-soaked history, the kind the consortium species had engineered themselves to be incapable of making. The Delphian observer had been officially removed from the planning session, but their sophisticated surveillance had penetrated the security protocols, allowing them to witness the unfolding human operation with mounting horror. The observer transmitted emergency data to the Consortium Council revealing Chen's plans. The Council immediately convened, demanding Chen halt the operation, the accusation of planned genocide echoing through diplomatic channels. Chen acknowledged the communication, but did not respond. Her focus remaining on the tactical displays as she gave the order to accelerate the evacuation using military transports originally intended for troop deployment. The consortium observer noted with confusion that Chen was committing additional resources to saving civilians, even as she prepared to sacrifice the systems themselves, a paradox of human morality that defied consortium ethical frameworks. Deep within the Vex command vessel, Commander Y regained consciousness, his neural suppressants wearing off according to schedule. The capture had gone exactly as planned. His team, now distributed throughout the biological megastructure for repairs, each member slowly awakening from their induced dormant state. The Vex had transported them directly to the command vessel, just as predicted. Y's modified nervous system interfaced with the organic technology surrounding him, gathering data as his body was suspended in a regeneration chamber designed to repair damaged Vex units. The biofluid surrounding him carried information through its molecular structure, allowing him to passively collect intelligence without active scanning that might trigger defenses. His team communicated through subtle changes in their bioelectric fields, a technique developed by studying deep-sea predators from Earth's oceans that hunted using electromagnetic sensing. Y accessed the Vex genetic archives through his neural interface, the data flooding his augmented consciousness in torrents of information. He filtered through it using pattern recognition algorithms developed specifically for this mission, searching for the origin markers. Admiral Chen had emphasized the files were heavily encrypted, but Wei's specialized training in cryptographic warfare allowed him to recognize fragments, patterns that began to form a disturbing picture. The genetic structure of the Vex contained markers identical to those found in several consortium elder species, their neural architecture showing unmistakable signs of directed evolution, not random development. The Vex hadn't emerged from beyond the galactic rim, they had been created within the consortium itself. The realization sent shockwaves through Wei's augmented consciousness as he accessed deeper archives, finding records dating back millennia. The truth becoming unavoidable, the Vex were weapons abandoned by their creators when they became uncontrollable, now returned with one evolutionary imperative hardwired into their collective consciousness: destroy their creators. The combined human fleet assembled at the edges of the Arcturus system, the largest concentration of military vessels Earth had deployed since joining the consortium. Ships of every design, from massive carriers to specialized infiltration craft, arranged in formation patterns derived from ancient naval warfare. On Earth's oceans, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the EDF Thermopylae, the newly commissioned flagship, named after a battle where a small force had held off a vastly superior enemy through tactical brilliance and sacrifice. The symbolism, lost on the consortium allies, but deeply meaningful to the human crews. All communication between vessels maintained radio silence, using only tight-beam quantum transmissions to prevent Vex detection. The battle plan existed only in the minds of the commanding officers, another human security measure that confused their allies but proved effective against enemies with sophisticated electronic warfare capabilities. The Vex command vessel appeared on long-range sensors, its massive biological structure dwarfing even the combined fleet, a living weapon the size of a small moon pulsing with a collective consciousness of billions of Vex entities. Chen studied the tactical display, her face illuminated by the holographic readouts showing Wei's team had successfully infiltrated and positioned themselves throughout the command structure, awaiting the signal to deploy the shutdown protocol. The final assault would require perfect coordination between the external fleet and the internal strike team, timing that would be impossible for forces without human tactical flexibility. Alarms sounded across the command deck as consortium vessels unexpectedly broke formation, the elder species withdrawing their ships without authorization. Their communications suddenly silent. Chen watched with growing alarm as nearly 40% of the Allied fleet reversed course and began accelerating away from the target. The Delphian representative approached Chen, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the tactical displays. They know, Admiral. They know what Commander Wei discovered. The elder species received the transmission about the Vex origins 30 minutes ago, the evidence that they created these weapons millennia ago, then abandoned them when they became uncontrollable. They're withdrawn to avoid responsibility. Chen processed this betrayal without visible reaction. Her training allowing her to compartmentalize the rage building inside these changes. Nothing, she responded, adjusting the tactical displays to account for the reduced forces. We attack. As planned, the human vessels closed ranks, adjusting formation to compensate for the missing consortium ships. The plan reconfigured in real time as experienced commanders made adjustments without requiring explicit orders, another uniquely human military trait. The Thermopylae accelerated toward the massive Vex structure, leading the attack just as its ancient namesake had led the defense against overwhelming odds. Aboard the Vex command vessel, Commander Wei moved through the biological corridors, his team now in position throughout the structure, each member carrying components of the shutdown device that needed to be installed at precise locations within the neural network. Wei accessed the central genetic archive again, confirming what he had discovered earlier, and transmitted to both Admiral Chen and the Consortium Council. The Vex were weapons created by the elder species during a forgotten war thousands of years before Earth joined the galactic community, the evidence irrefutable in the genetic markers and neural architecture, the bioengineering signatures unmistakable. The Vex had been abandoned by their creators, left to die when they became too difficult to control, yet they had survived, evolved, and eventually developed their own agenda. The central consciousness driven by one overwhelming directive: destroy those who had created them, then discarded them. Y reached the central neural nexus, the massive chamber pulsing with bioelectric energy, the heart of the Vex collective consciousness, his modified body, allowing him to move undetected among the biological processes that coordinated the entire Vex armada. He began assembling the shutdown device that would transmit the deactivation signal throughout the collective, the modified frequency that would exploit the failsafe the creators had left embedded in the Vex genetic code. As he worked, Y accessed more of the genetic archive, discovering something the initial analysis had missed. The Vex weren't simply weapons, they were modified sentient beings, a consortium species experimentally evolved for warfare, then condemned to extinction when they developed beyond their programming. The shutdown code wouldn't merely deactivate them, it would erase their neural patterns, effectively committing genocide against beings that had once been victims themselves. Y hesitated, his hand hovering over the activation sequence as the human fleet engaged the outer defenses of the massive structure outside. Explosions illuminating the organic walls around him, he faced the impossible moral choice that defined humanity throughout its history. The utilitarian nightmare of weighing lives against lives presents suffering against future suffering. Chen's voice came through his damaged comms. Time's running out, Commander, we need that signal now. The Reformation Council convened in the Great Hall of the Palais des Nations in Geneva. The ancient human structure chosen deliberately for its historical significance as a place where warring human nations once sought peace. The irony not lost on Admiral Kira Chen, now High Counselor Chen, as she addressed representatives from the surviving star systems, her uniform exchanged for the formal diplomatic attire of her new position. The transition from military leader to political figure, uncomfortable but necessary. The Vex War had reshaped galactic civilization in ways few had anticipated. Thousands of worlds lost, billions of lives extinguished, entire species erased. Yet from this devastation emerged a new understanding of what civilization truly required, not the absence of conflict, but the wisdom to manage it, the capacity for defense without surrendering to aggression. Chen studied the assembled delegates, noticing how many now incorporated elements of human organizational structure into their delegations, a recognition that humanity's adaptability had proven essential to survival. The Memorial of the Forgotten orbited Earth, a massive structure containing the complete genetic record of the Vex, preserved not just as a warning, but as a recognition of responsibility, the truth of their creation and destruction accessible to all citizens of the reformed consortium. Chen had insisted on complete transparency, despite objections from the elder species, who preferred their role in creating the Vex remained classified. The monument served multiple purposes: historical record, ethical reminder, and practical insurance against repeating the mistakes of the past. Human survivors of Y's strike team maintained a permanent vigil aboard the memorial, their neural patterns forever altered by their contact with the Vex consciousness, their perspectives unique in the galaxy, having touched minds with both creator and creation. Their testimony damning to the elder species who had engineered sentient weapons then abandoned them. Commander Wei himself now served as Earth's representative to the Security Council, his experiences inside the Vex command vessel qualifying him uniquely to oversee the new protocols preventing biological weapons development throughout consortium space. The shutdown signal he had eventually activated had indeed extinguished the Vex collective consciousness, but not before Y had secured a partial backup, preserved in isolated systems, quantum-locked, and heavily guarded. The controversial Redemption Project now studied these preserved consciousness fragments not as weapons, but as victims of experimentation, seeking to understand their evolution, and perhaps eventually restore a non-hostile version of the species, a concept the consortium would never have considered in its previous incarnation. The human notion of redemption, even for enemies, as implacable as the Vex, challenging millennia of consortium ethical frameworks. The galaxy settled into an uneasy peace, the reformed consortium, fundamentally different from its predecessor humanity, no longer the primitive newcomer, but the acknowledged savior whose martial prowess had preserved civilization. Yet Chen understood the fragility of their position. Human military capability now inspired both gratitude and fear among the member species. A same warrior nature that had saved them could potentially dominate them. Chen addressed this concern directly in her inaugural speech. As High Counselor, we fight when necessary, but we rebuild always. She declared that's the true human legacy, not our capacity for violence, but our insistence on finding a better way forward, even after the darkness humans had unleashed chaos when needed, but also demonstrated restraint, compassion, and vision qualities as essential to their nature as their ability to wage war. The Redemption Project facilities on Europa represented the most visible example of this balanced approach. The preserved Vex consciousness fragments, studied by a joint team of human and consortium scientists, seeking to understand, rather than destroy to heal, rather than eliminate. Chen visited the facility regularly, observing the progress as researchers attempted to communicate with the fragmented Vex consciousness, finding ways to remove the destructive imperatives without erasing their essential nature, a project many considered impossible, yet perfectly embodied humanity's paradoxical approach to existence, the determination to find hope in despair, possibility in devastation, and reconciliation. After conflict, the galaxy had indeed unleashed chaos and humanity had fought back, but in victory, they had chosen a path neither the Vex nor the old consortium would have imagined, preserving instead of purging, remembering instead of forgetting, and ultimately growing stronger not through dominance, but through understanding the human way forward, carrying the lessons of their blood-soaked history into a future where such lessons might prevent rather than enable the next conflict.